we're going to start with the classic question, which is Cambridge or Oxford? Who's better?
Okay. Controversially, having lived for a decade in Cambridge, I might say Oxford. But I think
kidding.
I would have said Cambridge at the beginning, and then now I've been to like every cafe in Cambridge so many times. I'd say Oxford. There's just more going on. It's bigger.
It's bigger. I don't know. I find Cambridge more cuter and just as better kind of a vibe. But that's me as a person who has like visited a few times and
You know what?
enjoyed
It's
the
great
different
to visit. It's
cafes.
not. It's not so great to live in. I think because it's basically there's a centre and then there's not really anything else.
Yeah,
So the
that's it.
centre is
Yeah.
like all students. It's all students and tourists.
Yes, exactly. And as a tourist who had an extra interest also in quantum computing, because apparently Cambridge is one of the leading places for quantum computing. Yes, I agree, and I will nod. And then, people will go like, so, all this King's College, because you're a graduate of both, if memory serves me right. What is that? What's that about? Especially for us, the people who live here in America. And the only thing that we know is like that all the budget, especially from Los Angeles, everything moved to London. This is why you see all the movies are in London and not in LA. But no problem from my side. Yeah.
I mean, the colleges are amazing. They're like these old, beautiful buildings that have been around since like, I don't know, 13th century, this kind of thing, 14th century. So they're like beautiful, like, part of the university. So Cambridge, I mean, is definitely one of the most beautiful cities, which is why it attracts all the tourists, and actually why it was an incredible place in during COVID and lockdown, because like the whole city is tourists and students, and they all left, and then you just got these beautiful these beautiful buildings with no one there. So it was really incredible. Yeah, Queen's College, King's College, they're like colleges that students are being taught in for the university, but they're like these old, sometimes Gothic buildings or beautiful, like very, very old buildings. It's worth looking up, going to see.
Now, I think in your LinkedIn, it said that you finished first in your class in Queen's College. You studied, what was it, physics, or your PhD was in physics?
Both.
Okay. Now, I studied electrical engineering. We tried to keep it simple. And then we saw, one of my friends studied physics. And yeah, I thought that our math was complicated. And funny enough, the first time that I actually got a good grade was in partial differential equations. And then I saw what he needed to deal with. I was like, yeah, no. Because I actually considered doing a double EE and physics, and then it dawned on me like, yeah, that's love the concept, not going to happen. It's something outside of my league. So,
I don't know. I think like it's funny that people think of physics as like this very cool subject, and like it is, but I think that it's definitely that I'm sure it wasn't out of your league, but every single part of it is so niche, so you get like good at one specific piece. So like I did my PhD on black holes was my thing, and everyone I speak to is like, black holes, that's amazing, and they sound so cool.
It's scary. It's so scary, in my opinion. But yeah, please go ahead.
But well, maybe, but even that, I mean, it wasn't on my mind day to day doing research in it, because I was basically spending my entire time looking at one equation, and that, okay, the equation has lots of meaning, and it's but essentially, I spent 4 years looking at one equation, which is like, what happens to something when it falls into a black hole, and that's you can theorize about it and make movies about it, but like there's just like a tiny equation that governs it. That's like a mathematical thing that you can spend years trying to solve. So it's like very cool and very niche.
So for the people who are listening or watching and asking yourself, okay, when are we getting to insurance? We will get there because everything is mathematics, right? Everything is mathematics, and then there is the complexity of mathematics. You try to explain the world through mathematics, and then you ask yourself, okay, black holes, how many movies been done about black holes and using them? And I'm sure that you rolled your eyes so many times. I don't know if it's what was it? There was actually a really good movie that they used kind of a black hole so they can reset time and a time machine and all kinds of cool
So
stuff
many
like
times.
that. So many,
Yeah.
so many. So, and then at the end of the day, it's like you go, when you take a physicist into the market, go like, oh, you can actually be really good with algorithms. And algorithms, that's my clunky segue to AI. Yes. And so what's going on in AI? Because when we are recording this, where am I calendar? Oh, it's November 26th. So people are afraid that there is an AI bubble. Nvidia just lost 4%. Google is, rising up. Now they are the second or the third biggest company in the world. So many things are happening. So let's start with super basic. What the hell is AI?
Okay, AI is artificial intelligence, and it is a way of predicting the next step based on inputs. And there are lots of different types of AI models. AI is not that new. It's been around for quite a long time. But now everyone is suddenly excited about AI because of the launch of generative AI, which is basically using these sort of models to which are super powerful, and they don't need to be, they're sort of trained like a human, but unlike previous sort of machine learning models, they don't need very much training to be able to be very, very accurate, and they can generate the next word in a sentence. That's kind of the typical thing that they do, and they tell you what you want to hear. So everyone's seen and used ChatGPT, and it's kind of, you say something and it tells you what you want to hear back, which is why it doesn't always get it right, and why it tends to be quite positive, and it's like a confident idiot sometimes, because you want it to be confident, but it's
Interesting.
it's predicting the next thing that will go, that you think is going to go well after your previous sentence.
Okay, I actually have a good question about that because I just wonder if they trained it or that's the tweak to give you that confidence in terms of the answer. But before that, we need another super basic question, which is, we're AI, we're ML, machine learning, and people love to use them both at the same breath. So what is machine learning?
Okay, basically, machine learning is like is a subset of AI, and AI is, I guess, machine learning uses like lots of training data, lots of inputs to be able to predict an output. So given all these examples of like photos of cats, you can train a machine learning model to predict if a photo it hasn't seen before contains a cat, as an example. AI is like artificial intelligence. It's a much more like general way of describing methods to mimic like human intelligence with algorithms.
So it's the education, there is the overall, and now people are kind of now almost on the same page about what are the main things. And then recently, especially in insurance, we had a new thing, a new definition, and that's the agentic AI. I hope I pronounce it. So
This is
what's that
unfortunate.
about? Okay,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. Okay, great. Why? Why is that unfortunate? What is it,
Yeah.
and why is it unfortunate?
Yeah. So I think this has become like a source of like a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, agentic AI are a specific type of AI models that are
Mm-hmm.
able to reason and make sort of guesses at every step. So they can do very exploratory tasks. and they're sort of very complex reasoning models, and they're a specific type of AI model. Unfortunately, in the insurance industry, people are using the word agentic and agentic AI to mean anything that feels a bit like what a human would do, like human work. If that's automated, it's being called agentic. But that is not. It's in the strict sense. And so there's been the industry have kind of conflated two things, like AI agents, as in genuinely using AI agent models, and automating work in a way that feels a bit like a human. Does that make sense?
It does. So it's okay, I have a question and answer, and then, I'm going to give you a task and you figure out how to do that because, hey, apparently you are my agent and you can think like a human, but not really.
Sort of, but like, yeah, so you might have a task that's like involves a series of steps. And like, let's say it's a 20-step task, and that in insurance that might be something like for I don't know, submissions intake for MG. Yeah. So like broker submits something by email, an underwriter has to pick up the email, download the attachment, it's a PDF, but there's some other stuff in the email they've got to read and understand. Then they've got to like copy and paste or like rekey lots of that information from the email or from the PDF into some internal system. Goes on and on and on. Lots of those steps are there's an exact answer, and it's the best approach is going to be deterministic. So it's like you don't need to have a model that's like guessing the answer. You need to copy and paste this thing from here to here. But like reading and understanding and having sort of some interpretation of the email, that requires some sort of thinking. And so basically, that means that you might want, for some of these parts of the task, deterministic sort of software, and others you want like really powerful reasoning models. So you want to use AI, and so you might actually not want to use AI for all of it. AI is probabilistic, but the problem is with probabilistic things is that they're only like 95% accurate, or maybe a bit more, but they're not 100% accurate. Mm-hmm. And that's okay if you get like 99% accuracy. But if you have a like 20-step process and you apply that 95% accuracy to every step, then the chance of getting the whole process right becomes like 30% or something really small. Is that making sense? So you actually only want to basically use your AI models like very deliberately in the places where you need AI, and not in all the other places where you get just as good a result or better one using software. So in that example, like most of the steps you want to use software, and only like the human reasoning bits you want to use AI. So I wouldn't call that like an AI agent at all. I would call it like software with some AI.
This is when I still stumble on all kinds of companies that offer RPA services. And you ask yourself, do I need them or do I need AI? Who's going to apply, let's call it the intelligence of how to structure the automation? Because at the end of the day, we just used to call them scripts. That's it. Just, it's this time of the evening or something happened. Please do the series of the following tasks that are pre-planned for you.
And in those cases, like, it doesn't make sense to use AI to do it. That's just absolutely overkill. And you're bringing in risk when you don't need to. So something like RPA or just a script is perfect. But then when you want to have something intelligent or be able to make some sort of human reasoning decision, that's when you want AI. So my view of the world is that you need a blend. In any process you're going to take on, it needs to have some elements controlled by AI and other elements which are definitely not done by AI.
Yeah, so we started to talk about Unitary. We talked about a little bit about AI, RPAs. When all the AI started, I don't want to say made fun of, or was a little bit, I was a little bit sarcastic. Yeah, that would be better description of that. About we have an eye, but dude, at best you're doing a linear regression here. Nowadays, I don't know if you attend an ITC or ITI. When you walk down the streets, the avenues of booths, everyone, we are an AI company. Are they an AI company? Do you need to be an AI company to operate in the insurance industry?
You know
Or
what's
what's the
quite
difference
funny?
between a proper AI company and someone who, sorry, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so I started the business back in 2019 and wanted to call it Unitary, and Unitary.com was taken, and so had to get Unitary.ai. And at the time, we were an AI company. At the time, we were kind of annoyed about it because we thought that no one would take us seriously as a .ai and everyone was .com. And now it's the complete opposite. Like everyone wants to have .ai as their website. So I sort of feel quite pleased about it. But you're right, everyone is now trying to be an AI company, even when it doesn't make sense to be an AI company, or claiming they're an AI company because they use AI somewhere. I think the thing is that it's so easy to use AI. So it's so easy to become an AI company if you want to be, or if you want to sell yourselves as that, that's fine. I think though it's like, what's actually the best tool for the job? And probably AI is sometimes the best tool, but in a lot of cases it's not. And so becoming an AI company so you can say you are is a bit painful.
So what is the difference between an AI company and a company that says it's AI, but it's not really an AI company?
So I think the difference is an AI company is building products that don't just like use AI as a feature, but where it's core to the product they're building. So, for example, a lot of the tools and services that we already use are starting to build like features and add-ons that have like an AI agent in it. So, for example, like Salesforce now has Agentforce. Or all of all the tools are starting to launch some AI feature that help you do your job better. I say that's a feature. That's not a core part of the product. So they are. I would still say they're not an AI company. They are.
They're still a CRM. Yeah.
Exactly. But there are other companies, and to greater or lesser extent, but like us, who have where AI is part of what we sell. It's like a core part of the offering. It's the product, not a feature.
Perfect. So, I think that's one of the better definitions I heard. Is it a feature or is it the core of the business? And it doesn't matter if you run, we gave kind of the example of NVIDIA, which is how you run it, the pipes to NVIDIA, or I don't know, the LLM or the data sets in order to train a company that trains, or what was it that I saw recently? It was a debate if they are a data company or an AI company, but at the end of the day, they generate a synthetic data to train AI models, right? So they are in the play, but that's part of the core in terms of what they are doing, which is brilliant. Okay, so I think that it's a good time to actually talk about your company. What do you guys, what do you guys do?
Okay, so
let me guess, AI.
Some AI, sometimes. Only when necessary. Yeah, so we're called Unitary or Unitary.ai, but we help companies automate like repetitive manual work, but without any tech effort at all. So no like APIs or engineering integration. And we do that with our product, which we call virtual agents. And virtual agents log in to our customers' tools and mimic exact processes, even if that's logging into an email or using a legacy system, whatever it is. It follows the human processes, and all it needs is like user logins to get started, so it can be up and running in a couple of weeks. And we call them virtual agents because they're like super robust versions of AI agents. So there's some AI in there, but also a lot of software when needed to make sure you get the job done with the right level of accuracy. And we actually guarantee contractually human level accuracy. And these virtual agents are supported by humans in the loop to make sure that we can live by that accuracy guarantee. And over time, as sort of there's some human supervision and humans get involved, every single thing that they do goes back into training and improving the AI. So within usually about 2 months, the vast majority of decisions get completely automated. But virtual agents basically take on these complex manual work, things like the submissions, intake, bordereau, loss run requests, all sorts of kind of repetitive manual tasks that is the low leverage work that teams are doing, and automate them in a very, very fast way.
And so shouldn't that be an RPA?
So RPA can do parts of it, but the problem with RPA is, on the one hand, it's very brittle. So like if something changes in the system, or you're actually maybe not even using a system you control, so you have to log into a guide wire or something else, and then they change something, then RPA like completely falls over. And so you've got to get your engineers to like redo it. So it's a bit brittle. And the other thing is it can't take on like human reasoning tasks. So what if at some point, some step in your process, you've got to like do some thinking tasks? The RPA can't do that either. So virtual agents basically can take on that whole thing in a robust but also smart way. So it can take on the human reasoning side and is also sort of robust against all those changes, because that sort of it's got the AI element as well.
Can you dive a little bit deeper into, or give a use case that you've seen beside you mentioned Bordeaux and stuff like that, but you didn't start in insurance. You started serving the insurance industry recently, right?
Yeah, about a year ago.
Which industry were you earlier?
Yeah, the first industry we went into was actually looking at social platforms and user-generated content. And we were working in content moderation. So in every platform, you can report content and it'll basically gets flagged for a human to go and review it. And so there are tens of thousands of people whose job it is to review content that's been reported on every data app or every social network or whatever. And this is a very, very repetitive task where you're basically looking at a text message or image or video, some comment, and saying, is this in line? Does this violate, the guidelines of the platform? And then taking some action. It's like a very repetitive manual task. And so the industry we first launched virtual agents in was this content moderation industry, to automate a lot of that repetitive manual process in when the job here is like open up a ticketing system, look at the report that's been filed, look at the evidence, and then make a like genuine assessment of the evidence. Like, does this contain enough nudity to violate this specific company's nudity policy? Or is this hate speech by this company's definition? Or is it just something else, And so that's a genuinely like hard AI-based problem. But then there's also, depending on the decision, take this action, write to the user, send an email, do this thing. And so there's a whole task like end to end you have to do, which is a combination of like sort of logic-based steps and also like human reasoning. So we started off in content moderation, working with like dating apps and social platforms. And then we realized that this product we built, virtual agents, it was quite broad. It was quite applicable to any repetitive manual task, like anything that an entry-level person could do. Because what we built was like a learning machine. It can understand some guidelines and start doing it and improve the automation over time. And what we found was we started working with marketplaces, first in content moderation and then like broadly across like custom operations and back office operations and marketplaces. And we found that our customers that like loved this the most were those that they had lots of different tools and systems involved in their processes. And so their barrier to automation, like before us, would have been that they would have to overhaul their whole systems or like redesign legacy systems in order to get the data in one place to start automating. And so with us, they were able to basically get started straight away without having to go on this like whole big transformation project. Or they could go on that journey, but they could start automating really fast. And so we kind of looked around for other industries which had processes that involved, which had lots of manual processes, but also involved lots of different tools and systems. And the insurance industry felt like a very good candidate for that, because there's a lot of legacy.
And needless to say that now that you moved to London, you are closer to the industry is. How do you see their adoption? Is it?
It's quite exciting. I think people are really open to it.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of like insurance companies that are very risk averse. But now that there's this sort of AI buzz, FOMO imperative, maybe, people are actually taking it seriously. And I think it's becoming an industry that is actually exciting for startups, whereas I don't think that's been the case for that long. Suddenly now there's appetite to try things out in a way there's never been before. So we're able to get like proof of concepts and, customers in places that are very risk averse, typically risk averse people and companies. But it's definitely true actually that the US is less risk averse than the UK. I think people are more up for it, more up for trying things in insurance anyway as well than in London. But there's such a concentrated group in London. So, and there's definitely a lot of, I want to do what my neighbour's doing. So
yeah, I think this is that's one of the benefits in London, because in the city you have everyone there. It's a square mile. Everyone is there. There is a certain density to it, and as a result, no matter if you have a coffee or most likely a beer And you already hear who is doing what and why, and you should use this tool and that tool. And you know, in your free time, you use ChatGPT, and then you ask yourself, wait, why I don't have or why I can't use it on my work because, you know, enterprise constraints and regulation, and basically, as you said, risk averse, or let's call it risk management. And that will, and kind of the solution for that, it's more about trust, maybe even safety. People will ask about
Data security.
oh no, yeah, security. I was about going more toward the ethical question,
Yeah.
ethics. But let's start easy because each one of them is a deep philosophical question, right? Well, let's call it mistakes, right? Human, we make mistakes, and you earlier talked about 99% accuracy. Where are we today? Because people make mistakes as well.
You know
How do
what's
you
interesting?
establish trust?
Yeah. What's interesting is that with our product, we actually commit to matching or beating the current accuracy that human teams are getting in our customers. And
That's a brilliant benchmark.
so the first step is to actually try and measure what is the accuracy of the human team. And I have to say, it's incredibly variable. So people have a tendency to say, well, I don't want to trust AI unless it's 100% accurate. But they trust their people who are definitely not 100% accurate. And the more boring the task, the worse the accuracy in general. And that's why we have this like, well, we'll match or we'll beat it. And that's our sort of guarantee. But it's very interesting seeing like some places it's like 70% accuracy. Other times it's 99% accurate.
Yeah, so I think that we can skip the ethics question because in insurance, I don't know how much ethics we need to deal with in terms of answering like Grok or one of those, you know, on Twitter. And it was just funny. You talked about there is so much hate and nonsense that we see nowadays on the different social media networks. But I think that you mentioned that your focus was on the dating apps or stuff like that. So I assume that it was a different type of hate or policies.
Everything, to be honest.
Everything, of course.
I mean, luckily for us, we didn't have to make decisions about like, is this hate speech or not? We weren't like the arbiters of truth. Our job is to enforce a policy. So it's on the platform to come up with their own policy, and then we enforce it, which makes our life a bit easier.
Yes. So for the sake of insurance, we'll stick to trust, safety, and then you talk about security. So where is my data? Who is using my data? What's going on with my data? Who can breach my data? What's your take on security and safety?
I think it's possible to have things in a very secure environment. You know, we had to get like SOC 2 certifications and ISO 27001, and like there's all this stuff you have to do to make sure. But like if you put in place the necessary precautions, it's possible to use AI in a safe way. And there's, you know, you can make sure that your data isn't being used to train models for other random companies or other random people, or that it's not going into GPT. And, you know, you want to put in a lot of guardrails. But provided the guardrails are in place, I think it can be done very safely.
So as we kind of getting to the end of the podcast, because it's actually, as I said, it's going to be longer or shorter, or the 3 hours. We can continue talking if you like. Do you do any martial arts? Yes.
Martial arts?
Yes. I don't know. It's a very clumsy joke in the terms of, you know, like the Joe Rogan thing. It's like 3-4 hours podcast, and it's immediately, are you a bow hunter? Do you do any martial arts? Do you eat, I don't know, live, I don't know, the liver or whatever, things like that. But we'll stick to AI and insurance. I think it will be a little bit better. What people should talk about or know about AI in insurance that they don't really talk about or are aware about?
I think they should think hard about whether something actually needs AI, or whether it's like driving a Ferrari when you only need, I don't know what the right. I'm not a car person. I shouldn't have gone down this.
Well, they need a Toyota.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, I think it's like, what is the right tool for the job? Are they able to like decompose the jobs so that you can then pick the right tool for each bit of it? And I think there's just so much excitement and hype. I guess my biggest takeaway is like, there are a lot of companies embarking on these very large scale transformation projects of like 3 years or more. And I think they're going to I just think they're destined to be the losers. They're going to be still in 3 years' time figuring out their large-scale transformation project. And I think now is a time of separating winners from losers. And the winners are going to be the ones that take small bites, run POCs, try out small bits of automation, see how it goes, try and adopt AI in lots of different places, rather than trying to transform everything all at once. I mean,
Well,
Big Bang.
they've been in the journey of transformation for almost 20 years. At the beginning, it's like, oh, we should move away from IBM to the cloud or a different on-prem solution, and then to the cloud. Now we are trying to automate their stuff while they are still struggling with old and new core systems, and even the new core system already defined as some sort of a legacy. And then people, you should automate stuff. And now you should run after this super, super cool buzzword, AI, because it's going to take our jobs. And not just AI, it's going to be agentic AI, because it can take decisions and apply not just a probability it's A or B, but actually it can set up its own. Here's the process of what I need to follow. And step 5, I'm not really sure about it, so I'll jump to step 6, because it didn't work with a certain probability that it's correct. So what's next? What's the future looks like?
I think the future is quite exciting. I think this is like a fundamental change. I think the industry's going to look very different in a decade from now. I think we're on the road to like a one-man MGA and a one-man carrier and a one-man broker. I mean, we're not going to get there, but it's going to be very, very small. You just don't need all these people. It'll be one person who orchestrates a whole bunch of like AI solutions, essentially.
So, I know a story about a one-man carrier that was doing well, but there was a I remember, because it's a hearsay of a hearsay. Basically, health insurance, he wrote everything from scratch, was very good. However, he forgot, to get the right licensing or something like that. There was something wrong that he missed a step. And although the company was successful and profitable, they managed to shut it down because they found some sort of a regulatory reason to shut it down. But it's an example that sometimes all these companies, if you do it right, you can do it. It's just make sure that you're efficient and you're hungry enough. Cool. No, it's I need to actually to check that. What's the story there was, but so great. I completely lost the rhythm of where we were and what we were talking about in the future. Who should reach out to you, and how can they reach you?
I think people should reach out to me if they have heavy manual operations. So think underwriting, claims, bordereau, wherever they are in your business. If you want to automate manual operations, but without any tech lift at all, and just be able to try something out in a couple of weeks, then reach out to me. You can find me on a website, Unitary.ai. Email me on Sasha@Unitary.ai.
And we're going to add that, of course, in the comments or the description and everything, and all that beautiful stuff that if I ran this podcast as my day job, we'll have more and more flashy thingies flying here, which Brilliant. I don't, because it's more about having conversation with someone who is interesting. Sasha, thank you very much for joining me today and sharing your knowledge experience. And we hardly talked about black holes, and we didn't talk about Stephen Hawking, and we didn't talk about what's the best place in Cambridge. And now I don't know in which part of London you are, but where one needs to go to have what? The best coffee? What would be, I don't know, the best curry dish? What's the...
the best curry. That's a good idea.
It's kind of the national dish, or the more popular dish, which is awesome, great. I do my checklist. I always go for what it's called, smash, and get a little bit classic food, but that's my problem. Anyway, Sasha, thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you.